Virtual reality, of course, is now available. It is either in the hands of consumers or making its way into the hands of consumers who pre-ordered it, and hopefully it will become more available as stock becomes more available for the Oculus and so on, as well as, of course, the PlayStation VR, which of course isn't out yet. But as we all know, the VR revolution hasn't really happened yet. Many people, including myself, have said that, hey, look, the VR revolution, or whatever you want to call it, is going to take time. It's going to take time for awareness, it's going to take time for more games to come out to make the rather hefty purchase worth it, and of course the headsets themselves are going to have to become cheaper, and the hardware required to run them is going to have to become cheaper to make it more available to a mass market rather than the niche power user that we have at the moment. But despite all these concerns, there has been still a fair amount of hype around VR. And now we have some comments about virtual reality from the Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick, who has some doubts about virtual reality and whether or not it will really take off in the industry. Now, he spoke about this to the Cohen & Company 44th Annual Technology, Media and Telecom Conference at the New York Palace Hotel. Now, of course, he had some rather lengthy comments, but we have sort of the key parts for you here. And he said, quote, "If the consumer wants to consume interactive entertainment with VR hardware, we'll have no trouble being in that place. We've been doing R&D for some time. We have relationships with everyone in the business. What we haven't said yet, is we're prepared to bet the farm on VR development without seeing what the marketplace looks like and what the appetite actually is and what the format looks like. We're not incentivized to be at the front line of development. We are actually incentivized to wait and see if there's an install base, let the format settle down, and let other people test the market. So we're quite happy to be a free rider. If there's a market, we'll get into the market in 6 to 12 months and we'll be just fine. As it happens, I think there are numerous constraints for interactive entertainment. It's way too expensive right now. There is no market for a $2,000 entertainment device that requires you to dedicate a room to the activity. I don't know what people could be thinking. Maybe some people in this room have a room to dedicate to an entertainment activity, but back here in the real world, that's not what we have in America. We have like $300 to spend on an entertainment device and we do not have a dedicated room. We have room for a screen, a couch, a controller. We don't have something where you stand in a big open space and hold 2 controllers of something on your head and, you know, not crash into the coffee table. We don't have that. There are a number of constraints, as I've said before. I'm not unexcited, I'm just saying, it remains to be seen. And to be fair, those are rather valid complaints or concerns, shall we say, about virtual reality. Now, of course, the room scale thing really only applies to the HTC Vive, not really the Oculus. The Oculus is, at the moment at least, a seated experience. The Vive, of course, can be played as a seated experience as well, but one of the main features of that particular device is naturally the room scale experience, and that's probably something that has put a few people off. I know for me, my personal office space is probably not going to be big enough with all the furniture and stuff in it, and there's not really anything that can be cleared out with the space that I have to make more room for the VR, so when or if I was able to get a PC gaming headset or even a console headset, it would probably be the Oculus or the PlayStation VR for console-wise, because, well, that's a seated experience. I can just, you know, sit down at my desk or on my sofa or whatever and just play. I don't have to worry about a room scale thing where I have to move out the coffee table and make sure that the cat doesn't trip me over or whatever. So he definitely has valid concerns, and that is definitely something that's going to be coming into the mind of a lot of people is, do I have the space for this device? But the main thing in the minds of many people is naturally going to be the cost. It's not even the cost of the base headset itself for the Oculus or the Vive, it's the fact that the beefy PC that you need to run these is not exactly cheap. And while we have some GPUs on the horizon that are probably going to make VR cheaper, it's still a hefty investment to make. And naturally the PlayStation VR has the chance to make it a bit more accessible, being the sort of lower end, but even with that, if you throw in the camera and the Move controllers, you're still looking at a fairly hefty investment for the early adopter. So one of the main things I would say is definitely the cost. If you make it cheap enough to actually get into the hands of more consumers, but obviously not sort of cut your own leg off too much in terms of profits or losses or whatever, then most people will probably be willing to take that gamble and see if they can work with the space requirements and that sort of thing. I think most people will be willing to make room temporarily for a VR device, perhaps, you know, clear out stuff in the living room or whatever whenever they want to play VR. if it was of course more accessible and that sort of thing as well. So there are numerous good points from Strauss there. I mean, I still think that VR is going to make huge waves, or at least has the potential to do so. Hasn't done it yet, but I think it still has the potential to do so. I'd love to hear some thoughts from you guys as always. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.